What have we learned over the last decade from our community empowerment work in Wandsworth? A decade that started for us with the election of the new Labour government.
The new dawn has broken, has it not?
And the development of the national strategy for Neighbourhood Renewal, and has ended with a Conservative-led coalition government and the big society. What we have learnt is to reclaim the power of community. In 2001 and the preceding decades, community was something that was typically remote from public agencies, something that existed out there and a place where things were done to. And things were done, from urban renewal programmes to city challenges, from new deals to single regeneration budgets. But communities were not places that had their own histories and traditions that should be cared for and nurtured, but places seen as places of poverty and deprivation. Places which only the arm of the state could help alleviate by parachuting in groups of well-meaning professionals, dollops of money as well. Over the last 10 years, though, we've borne witness to the abundant capacity and resourcefulness of our communities and our community leaders. Communities that are steeped in history, culture and tradition, that are vibrant and dynamic, capable and confident in their own selves, committed to hard work and the importance of family, caring and sharing, and the belief and the hope in better days to come, something that has sustained them and their families through generations of hardship and struggle. We also learnt that our communities are not just poor and deprived individuals and families, they are communities of skills and talents. Our communities are also in our universities and colleges. They are in our trade unions and civic societies. They are our social clubs and our networks, our businesses and our public agencies. Today in Wandsworth and South West London, we're beginning to demonstrate how the power of communities and agencies to think and act in new types of ways is starting to have an impact on the way in which we design and deliver public services for the common good. So where did our story begin? The Neighbourhood Renewal programme of 1998 established 88 regeneration areas created across the country, each with its own community empowerment network. In priority terms, Wandsworth was listed as 87 out of the 88. And our task was to bring local communities into a partnership with the newly formed local strategic partnerships, which would then aim to, quote, bend the mainstream, unquote, and undertake joined-up thinking to reduce what was called, quote, postcode poverty, unquote.
Well, because it's about partnership. It has to be, it's neither one side or the other, neither one thing or the other. It has to be all of us pooling our expertise and our knowledge to try and improve not only services but society.
In order to respond to the task of building a community empowerment network from what was a dispirited, fragmented and marginalised civic society, we defaulted to the creation of networks and forums across the borough, from area-based forums in Battersea and Balham, and Tooting and Roehampton, to networks of interest for refugee and asylum seekers, black and minority ethnic people, older people and faith communities.
Through the workshops and through the continuing work which we do, we can gather and begin to see how many organisations here, and I see a number of churches, Pastor Bishop Len Rose Church, for example, and there's a number of other churches here. We started NTA, we started Tooting Islamic Centre, we started the Association of Somali Women and Children, and then we grow.
Who have got buildings which are prominent in the local community and which bring together in solidarity and in common purpose many, many people. And you can just imagine this place. At the weekend, Delroy was telling me you've now started a second service on a Sunday morning because the church is so busy.
We were, however, operating under the heavier hand of public agency management, often very narrow and operating in separate silos, all of whom were becoming increasingly obsessed with targets and numbers and outputs and figures. But with the state attempting to do everything by itself for us, a legacy that was inherited from a welfare state, It also had a negative effect insofar as it disempowered communities from making the contributions that their histories and their cultures demanded of them to help themselves. Our churches and mosques, our temples and community organisations, our neighbourhood leaders and champions, all have had an enormous amount of lived experience to contribute towards building better societies, but are often made redundant by the will and the power of the so-called professional state. Soon enough, the Neighbourhood Renewal programme came to an end, and this allowed us to concentrate on what communities were thinking and wanting for themselves, and to listen and hear their testimonies. The more we started to meet and share across a more diverse range of communities, the more the transformational power of relationships started to emerge. In 2006, we were commissioned by our local mental health trust to help bring local people into a closer relationship with their foundation trust application. From here started a journey of learning and exploration that has led us to facilitating small and large associated spaces in which all people from all communities are free and enabled to come together to think and to act in new types of ways, to do politics in the purest sense of the word, namely a process by which groups of people make collective decisions.
And yesterday when we had the first day at the temple, the buzz that was in the room was just fantastic. It was amazing how energetic. We had a large proportion of the NHS there and members from our community. But it wasn't just the quantity of people who were there, it was the quality of the people which was more important. We had heads of department, people who could make a difference, who could make decisions.
The more our community leaders have become informed, the more that they started to reclaim their rightful place as responsible community actors, the more they've been able to tap into and unlock their own resources and those of their constituencies and congregations. Similarly, the more our public agencies have started to enter into a relationship with the local people, the more they have realised that by loosening up a little bit and obtaining the permissions to work in new types of ways, the challenges that they face can become halved by sharing resources and responsibilities with the very same communities that they're seeking to serve. The learning that we're undertaking with the improving access to psychological therapist services of the Mental Health Trust has been able to demonstrate the utility of the new relationships that have been created.
It's about getting out there and trying to build up trust with leaders in communities, key people who the community have faith in, and then trying to you have to expose yourself to communities, and sometimes that'll be tough. Sometimes you'll feel out of your depth, but we're all human beings, and the fact that we go out there saying we want to work with you, and then if you deliver something, and we can't make false promises, but if we can say to communities that we can get you access to depression services, we can get you access to talking therapies, we can make inroads into diabetes, then people will see there's something in it for us.
By co-producing the service, directly delivered in community-owned sites, service take-up overall has increased by 280%, and amongst BME communities by 580%. Suddenly, the art of the possible was illuminated. If these types of outputs and outcomes were possible with a small service like IAPT, then imagine the potential of relational networks when applied to more mainstream services like public health and safety, children and social services. Imagine then what the co-ownership of public services could deliver for the common good. By connecting more communities up with more and more services, the potential to imagine what the transformational state starts to look like becomes possible. David Cameron, the Prime Minister, has hinted at this in his transformation through the big society narrative.
Now, our alternative to big government is not no government, not some reheated version of ideological laissez-faire, nor is it just smarter government. Because we believe that a strong society will solve our problems more effectively than big government has or ever will, we want the state to act as an instrument for helping to create that strong society. Our alternative to big government is the big society. But we understand that the big society is not just going to spring to life of its own volition. We need a strong and concerted government action to make it happen. We need to use the state to remake society. Now, the first step is to redistribute power and control from the central state and its agencies to individuals and communities. That way we can create the opportunity for people to take responsibility.
But for us, it doesn't go far enough. It still ghettoises communities into volunteering with local authorities, often attaching a small grants programme to it. This approach undermines the potential of what the Big Society project could actually achieve. It preserves the power of sectional interests within state agencies, prevents new types of meaningful cross-community and cultural relationships to form, and it doesn't present a big enough offer for people to become truly responsible, public-owning citizens. However, as with most things throughout history, it is often our government and state agencies that are having to play catch-up. The potential of a new politic is in fact all around us. The emergence of GP consortiums, if they seize the opportunity to open up the potential for new types of collaboration around healthcare with local people being at the centre of decision-making and delivery. The political space is being contested by new types of public thinkers, challenging the orthodoxy of the old order. Organisations like London Citizens and Locality and the Occupy campaigners tapping into a new type of citizen-empowered action. Facebook and Twitter are also revolutionising the way that we connect and communicate with each other. All of this beginning to shift and change the landscape within which we are living and working. What we have learnt then is that right here, in our local communities, in our local areas, it is the relationships that we have amongst ourselves as individuals and families and as professionals and community actors across services and structures that the power to change and make a difference really exists. Here in Wandsworth, we have already started to create these new types of relationships and to develop the methodologies and topographies that are enabling us to act and think in more progressive ways, ways in which social capital can be unlocked and add to public value. The next 10 years will bear witness to whether we've had the vision and the moral courage to take advantage of the opportunities of our time.